We start with a digital ghost and approximate AI avatar of a deceased teenage girl, creepily watching clips of the living being she was based on when she was alive. And before you can say, you know, traumatising the sentient algorithm power in a highly weaponised mechanical suit of armour probably ain't a good thing, and this is exactly why I don't leave my data on the fucking iCloud, the $1 million high-tech iron suit is stolen by a black hobo in a bobble hat, after initially being stolen by a black midget weeks before. Given this is Chicago, and it just seems to be standard behaviour of these demographics at this point. Whilst over in the local cafe, the suit's first robber is being told by her magic mate that the cape cloak hood thing her boss always wears is actually powered by the dark magic of the demonic entity Tony Blair. Whoops, I meant Dormammu. When suddenly, she's ambushed by her ex-crime colleagues, who totally try to yeet this chocolate bird after she killed Chris Brown and their boss then put a hit out on her last epi, and given everyone who makes friends with this girl seems to end up dead or ruined at some point.
Bruh.
Luckily, she quickly makes the expert fighters look like total marks by trapping them in a small force field and then rolling them away like they're just having a nice time out on a Zorbin activity day. And she even beats the grenade-happy clown chick.
It was super easy, barely an inconvenience.
And before you can say, oh, why the fuck does she care about Johnny Boy when he kept smacking her up on tables just for plain dress up, and because that sounds like some next level Stockholm syndrome, son, she eventually escapes, only to head straight into the sights of newly liberated Doctor Who star Nkati Couture. Whoops, I meant a local homosexual who calls himself Slug for some reason, who instantly tries to squish her with his van, given she's conveniently running down the road in a straight line and not darting over to the pavement where he can't get her because reasons, when suddenly, she's saved in the nick of time by her own stolen armour, and just proceeds to do one of them classic truck flips everyone does in media these days, mainly by ripping off the Dark Knight, but this time with extra attitude.
Nice.
Somehow, the delicate camp phony fakey Time Lord easily survives what should clearly be a catastrophically fatal smash-up whilst barely even breaking a nail, before totally cucking out and promptly prancing off like a proper ponce. Whilst poor Ironheart just can't catch a break, now that supercharged super freak Joe, aka Ezekiel Shitstain, is now taking his revenge after this fucked up every aspect of his life, and also broke into his bunker and totally used up his supplies without even asking.
What a fucking liberty!
And now out of options, she just asks him nicely not to kill her this time. And he also cucks out and just walks away, despite going to all that trouble to shave his bonds, and totally make himself into a budget electro just to say hurty words, tickle her with a bit of lightning, and then let her bloody go scot-free.
Okay.
Cause that's like super anticlimactic, bro. And if simply asking baldy baddies to kindly let you go when they have you by the scrot is enough to end the threat there and then why did the bloody Avengers spend over 5 years and 2 movies fighting and dying, when they could have just asked Thanos real nicely to cease and desist from trying to yeet half the universe, and generally just stop doing all these bad things?
That's fucking retarded, fucking retarded, fucking retarded.
Now with her suit more busted than Mickey Rourke's face and Katie Price's body, after the show was so lazy, it just recycled a dollar store Iron Man vs Stain Battle Redux from the end of the very first MCU movie, yet did fuck all with it. She returns home to get patched up by Mama, and also patch up their relationship, and says they too have to cuck out and run away like total pussyoles now she has no suit, and Parker will defo come after them again if he finds out Joe randomly spared her after being asked super nicely and she. But her mum and Natalie just show her memories of all the happy times around here, and also in the garage where her beloved stepdad and best friend totally got shot up and deaded right in front of her face. So they all decide to instead nut up and totally stay put, given Chicago is their home, and no pussy old Latino Doctor Strange cosplayer is going to chase them away, bitch. Whilst elsewhere, nobody believes that Zeke actually yeeted the Iron Midget, given he's a piss poor liar and didn't even practice a believable cover story before heading back to his boss, but who seems to just let him off anyway, given he's clearly got other plans for him. The next day, RiRi uses all her resources and mates, including the literal child slave labour of Little Landon, to make a new magic-infused supersuit to take on the Parker fella with the snow white hairdo and dodgy acting, whilst a naughty gang of degenerate criminals all totally turn on their boss when it's revealed he indeed killed the current fuck-up's predecessor and OG member of the group Stuart, aka Rampage, who also kept fucking up. And the influence of the demon cloak is so strong on him that it makes him do multiple hate crimes in one, by strangling a nearby non-binary homosexual fella of colour.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
And after he chucks them all out and totally goes it alone, well, with the creepy voice in his hood that is, Xavier turns up at the garage to make peace with the woman who dragged up the corpse of his dead sister, what he mourned and got over 5 years ago, but now has to face every day in the form of an insufferable digighost, and thereby reopen old traumatic scars and wounds, just so she can have one friend again, who actually wants to hang out with this criminal thief and low-life college dropout, and who ain't actively trying to kill her for once. Whilst back in the burbs, a pissed off Joe finally snaps when the local Karen, who kept letting her dog do doo-doos on his lawn, threatens to snitch on him to the cops and shit. But it's luckily saved by Snow Brown turning up and making him into his very own Pinocchio puppet, given that upgrade procedure last epi also included a secret BS sciencey thing that now makes the Hood able to control him and totally beat up a bunch of rude and inconsiderate stuntmen who are constantly in his way. Before he bollocks his own dad for being a shitty father and not teaching him how to brush his hair, nor control his internal rage around effeminate black gaylords.
You had one job, you didn't do it right.
And I can totally relate, because I almost lost my shit around an effeminate black gaylord once, and almost threw Kevin Hart in the fucking Thames when the blind fucker bumped into me in London. Anyway, turns out all that nonsense about making big tech bozos sign contracts over to him was so that he could end up with a majority stake in his own father's empire, and then proceeds to force him to sign over everything this pussy old daddy has at gunpoint, so his degenerate son then has controlling interest and shit. And bringing a whole new meaning to enacting a hostile takeover. And we end with RiRi getting souped up in a new magic-infused super suit, but which just results with poor Natalie bloody dying in the exact same spot for a second time in 5 years. Gah, what are the chances? And that's it, that's the penultimate epi. Though my favourite part was seeing RiRi remembering the good times with her dead stepdad, where her younger self's dancing was so bad, she somehow almost knocked herself out with a friggin' hammer. Boy, and you thought you had 2 left feet. But anyway, on to the finale.
Fuck you!
We start in a flashback, as a young Parker is caught robbing a place and shooting up local security guards alongside his cousin, and eventually finding himself trapped inside a small tunnel with nowhere to go. Some dodgy bloke with a terrible Yankee accent opens up a magic hole in the wall and promptly buys him dinner, and asks him what his one best wish in the whole wide world would be. And before he can say, "Well, I'd quite like to put a curse on my barber for constantly giving me the Snow White Ziegler cut," he talks him into selling his soul in exchange for a shit raincoat. And he just can't believe he's made an immortal pact with Ali G, aka Borat, aka Mephisto, aka the literal MCU version of the devil incarnate.
Wow, is very nice.
Anyway, back in current day, the Hood fella, who got conned by a strange bloke played by a notorious prankster, has now finally got it all, including a giant fuck off delicious spread that even spells out the title of the shitty show he's in. And once again makes his little puppet boy Zeke confirm he indeed killed that meddling midget RiRi, and to also get stuck into some caviar already. Cause this shit cost a fortune, bro. And I think I may have gone a bit overboard and had eyes too big for me belly, pal. Whilst elsewhere, said meddling midget can't restore Natalie for love nor money, given the magics infused in her suit came at a cost. And that cost was the second death of her virtual AI assistant and tragic demise of the digital ghost of her best black friend.
That is some heavy shit.
So naturally, she thanks all her fam for helping her pimp her suit and heads off to find Parker and totally circumcise his leathery red hood already. Whilst the devil bloke checks back in with his disgruntled Latino client, and now with a worse Cockney accent somehow, who tells him he'll supercharge his magical hood thing if he can keep Ironheart from defeating him and nicking it in the upcoming battle. But said Ironheart skank is busy having problems of her own, once again facing off with Electro Joe, who's now facing off with his own Iron Man nemesis and thus ended up becoming exactly like his baldy daddy, who he always despised. And she farcically defeats his programming by a swift knee to the bollocks, which somehow causes him to soft reboot just long enough for her to put an override chip on his neck in order to short circuit the processor thing under his skin, and finally free him from the influence of the Latino Red Riding Hood cosplayer with the Ziegler hair.
Now that's what I'm talking about!
And instead of thanking her for saving his life, restoring his freedom and agency, and generally just appreciating a female having made physical contact with his groin area for the first time in years, he just whines about how their beef still ain't done, yo. And he'll totally get revenge at some point in the future, or at least when his ball bag stopped throbbing, and not in a good way.
LOL!
Later, RiRi confronts the Hood, who hilariously just proceeds to laugh in her face, when she implies she's a hero despite getting kicked out of college for fraud, stealing MIT property, joining a gang, making macabre AI duplicates of deceased loved ones, ruining a man's life by constantly fucking up, and then even leaving a poor bloke to suffocate in a small greenhouse. Well, he's got a bloody point, I guess. So, as is required in the contracts of all finale episodes of terrible MCU shows, they proceed to have their obligatory CG smack up. Until he ends up on the verge of going full Morbius and destroying yet another one of her suits only hours after she finally completed it.
Don't waste my motherfucking time!
And after mugging him off with a shitty hologram, she does what my Jewish doctor did to me at 3 years old and totally nicks his floppy pink hood, thereby promptly emasculating him and leaving him humiliated on the floor of his own gaff. Which is also what my girlfriend did to me every time she came back blind drunk from the pub at 1 in the morning. And after heading downstairs, she ends up in Mephisto's realm, and is soon forced to have a quick chat and a bite to eat with the fellow who can't be taken remotely seriously, well given he keeps slipping back into his Ali G accent.
Booyakasha!
And he then promptly offers her a deal of her own, mainly for them to work together with their genius intellect so they can then go and achieve wonders. And before you can say, well, I don't know about wonders, but how about just a Disney Marvel show that doesn't fucking suck? It's soon revealed how she seemingly indeed taken said deal, when the real flesh and blood Natalie is resurrected IRL, and RiRi gets herself a funky new fro, yo. And before you can say, well, she can't be much of a genius making pacts and bargains with obvious devils when she's already seen the cost of such deals, and how it actually makes you a monster and complete sociopathic danger to everyone around you. And well, more of one at least. We end with a stunning and brave first black female Iron Man hugging the freshly resurrected corpse of a long dead friend, whilst the ominous magical veins begin scarring up her arm, in a shocking plot twist that will now never likely be resolved given how poorly this was received, and also how rarely MCU shows get a second season these days. And that's it, that's the final epi. Well, aside from a quick mid-credit scene featuring a depowered Parker and now with a box standard basic bitch hoodie, begging Zelma to restore his red hood and to even show him a little wand trick out back if she has time. Steady. Though my favourite part was how that Mephisto fella finally shows up after years of teasing, but not in the fantasy show about magical witches, nor the other second fantasy show about even more magical witches, but instead just turns up in a budget Iron Man sci-fi series that's nothing but a desperate ploy to give checked out fans a reason to watch his clear and obvious slop.
Boring, sloppy, lazy.
And I can't believe she was so stupid and arrogant that she actually took the deal at the end. Like bish, did you not even watch your own bloody show? It's like her character didn't grow at all during the course of the series.
Take that off, what are you?
Strong, independent, shameless black thief with a disgustingly entitled attitude, bitch.
Fact check.
That's true.
But anyway, that's the plot and that's your lot. Considering that bell thing so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you like this show in the comments if you have time, and I'll roast a show that took 2.5 years to come out and somehow required 3 fucking editors to make it make sense with you in the next one.